looked into the ordinance around alcohol production. So I was trying to be in a retail area, and there's a reason alcohol is made in all the fringes of town. Although every municipality is different, it's about has to do with zoning. And one of the I was looking at a place, and I was like, oh, it's near my home. This really kind of has potential. And I'm like, I don't think you can make alcohol here. So I had to get a little schooled myself on what would be allowed where. But working with the city, I was I'm pretty close to the downtown core, so whenever something came up, I would just go there because as a citizen, they have to talk to me. So I'm like, well, at least I'll get an answer because they have to answer my questions. So once I honed in what and where it could be possible, it was right around the time that I went and visited the Brothers Vilgeli, which is a distiller making spiced honey liqueur. I don't know if it's called Krupnikas. And
I've heard of it. I haven't tried it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Rim is the owner and the maker there, and he's a total sweetheart and a great guy and makes a fantastic product. But on a Groupon, I took my sister there for her birthday, and he has a 1,500 square foot space in downtown Durham, and I was like, wow, he's really getting a lot accomplished here in this small space, and I've been looking for a much bigger space that really I couldn't afford. And after visiting his place, I was like, I'm going to see if I can find a space like that. And there were only the space that I ultimately rented and the suite next door to him were the only two spaces available in Durham that met those criteria. So suddenly my search, which had been so vast and hard and looking everywhere that I really couldn't be, became really simple. And I chose my space. I would have happily been his neighbor. It smells really good over there, but it's only a block and a half away from where I am now. So now I'm in a hub. With the Spiced Honey Liqueur around the corner, the Pony Source Brewery around the corner, the Bull City Cider Works around the corner, and HoneyGirl Meadery. So there's a little hub that's starting to form there, and that came after the fact. Some of those businesses were there, but we all kind of opened around the same time or within a year of each other.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize there was a distiller a block and a half away in the other direction. I would have gone there. But there was a hot dog truck over at the brewery, so
we'll point you there.
Yeah. Well, I'll just come over. I'll just come over I'll come over there when you're having a slow night, and I'll kidnap you, and we'll both go over there.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sounds good to me. I want to try this honey liqueur. I've heard about it. I didn't realize it was in Durham. So now I totally.
It's truly amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Durham is really being super friendly to alcoholic beverages in general, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, but you're totally right. I learned at one of the North Carolina Wine Growers conferences, because, it's constant learning, and I get to go with Ben and Becky, and we have a lot of fun. But they were saying, get to know your local CVB, your Convention and Visitors Bureau, whatever that is. Most every town has one. And I had seen how well they supported Krupnikas and Rim with his operation, and it was just a matter of I got a newsletter from them all the time. Like, hey, if you would ever like to invite our staff to your building, click here. And so I did, and had a chance to introduce myself to them and offer them a tasting at the meadery, and they've become fans and promoters, and they do so much. And I know from talking to other meaderies, their local Visitors Bureau folks are typically extremely supportive. They love the unique story that they say, oh, and guess what else we have in our town? Oh, we have somebody making Mead. It's a fermented honey beverage. It's a real draw. So I know I've heard where they're like, yeah, we're getting a lot of economic development support or support from the local city and the city boosters because of the unique thing that we're doing and making and that unique experience that we're sharing with people. It really does add to the personality of the place in which it gets planted.
That's really cool. And Durham's got Durham's always been kind of like the Detroit of the South, and at least in the eyes of the world. And I know that's how I viewed it when I moved here 20 some odd years ago, and it, at the time was having a lot of problems, and the downtown had deteriorated and all of that. But in the last, 10, 12 years, it has completely flipped. Now they've got the downtown is completely rebuilding. They've gone trendy with the old factories, the tobacco barns and everything, turning them into condos and shopping centers and all that. And now we've got the DPAC, and, so much is going on over there. And it's just really awesome because that, it's carrying along the craft alcoholic beverage industry is just riding along on that wave,
Right, and in a sense, helping to create it, helping to create it. So yeah, it's awesome. It is exactly that revitalization that we're seeing in so many cities. Yeah,
I think it's great. And here's the thing: is that sort of thing works. You go look at Detroit, the actual Detroit, and everybody thinks Detroit is a hellhole. And for a lot of things it is. You drive the streets of Detroit, there's a lot of abandoned homes, there's lots that have been burned down. There's a lot of not great going on there, but there's also a lot of recovery going on there and a lot of building going on there. And it's so big, you can't see that necessarily. But there's like 6 meaderies in the Detroit metropolitan area. Never mind the other 20 meaderies around the state. They're all right there in the Detroit or suburbs area. And it's like, okay, something's going on. Because there's breweries every other block. There's 6 meaderies. There's Ken Schramm's in Ferndale, which is right outside Detroit. And
right.
And it's like, so B Nectar is right there. Brad took me riding around when I was visiting, and there's people say, oh my God, Detroit, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not afraid to go there because I know that there's so much going on, There's so much that's happening now, and you just got to pay attention. There's bad neighborhoods in every city.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You just want to go with someone who knows where they are, so you can avoid them.
Well, yeah. So you know where not to go. But areas that used to be no-go zones for people that weren't looking to get into trouble, like 8 Mile in Detroit, are now like revitalizing, and there's all this stuff happening. And I had no fear walking down the streets. To go down. I went down to the local Thai place to get lunch when I was checking out Sellerman's. And, and that was not something I'd have done 20, 30 years ago in the Detroit area. I would know. I'd riding with the car windows up and the doors locked and as quickly as you can get through the city. It wasn't something that you did. But, things are changing. And Durham's the same way. It doesn't look or feel the same. The vibe is totally different than it was when I moved here. Totally different.
Yeah, it sounds like we've been here about the same amount of time.
Yeah,
I
moved here right after Fran, so But
okay, yeah.
We
I
bought
that. Fran. In fact, I made a beer during Fran.
Oh gosh, yeah,
homebrewing during Fran.
We found the house about a month before Fran, and we bought it like 2 weeks before Fran, and then closed on it 2 weeks after Fran. And we're freaking because we had a contract and Fran hit, and we figured our house was probably destroyed. We lucked out, man. Nothing fell on the house, so we were one of the lucky ones. But yeah, I remember driving through North Raleigh, going to the lawyer's office to sign the paperwork, and it looked like Beirut on a bad day. And I asked John, I said, can we go back to Atlanta? Because this never happens in Atlanta. It's like, it was awful, man. It looked so horrible. But, we survived that, and Floyd, and,
yeah, and 7 days without power.
2 weeks here,
At least 7 to 10 days without power, yeah.
Yeah. We went 2 weeks
here. You guys
here,
get hurricanes, we get ice storms.
Well, we get ice storms too. We get ice storms, and we're not prepared for them. That's the thing. We're not used to it. Even though it happens every year, we're still not used to it. But so, how hard was it for you to find your location? Downtown Durham is revitalizing, so there's a lot of competition for the space.
Absolutely. I'd say it's definitely a different landscape even today, and I'm lucky that I found my space when I did. It was still a little bit on the cusp, and honestly, I'm not a heavy retail traffic you've been there too, and it's more of a destination, even though I'm directly off of East Main Street. But that'll all change over time. And I think what's true probably then and now is that smaller spaces were a little bit harder to find. But it just depends on where you're trying to set up shop and that time and place, because it's all very changeable.
Yeah. So a lot of it, I think, is the luck of the draw and just being in the right place at the right time.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
AJ, you had a question.
Yeah, I did. Where did I write that down? How do you manage the finance when you're paying rent for a year and a half before you can open?
It's painful, AJ, definitely. And my space, though, was classified as a warehouse space, so the rent was not, it's just something that I had planned for in my financial plan. And this is where a business plan is really important, because you may get a great landlord or hook into some awesome economic development support where they're like, no problem having you not pay rent while you're doing the build out. And you may not. It's going to come down to the individual landlord and that time and place and luck factor. But I had definitely built in that there wouldn't be any income coming to the meadery for a long time. I had built in a year, so the fact that it was a year and a half was, it's just one of those many surprises that you could have to deal with. But the way I handled it, once it kept going on and on, I can't make mead, I can't sell anything, but I knew that I could give away my homebrew. So I started opening on third Fridays, which is a big, art, go out and look at art in the galleries and spaces in Durham where I'll have events. And so I'd open for those hours and started publicizing it on Facebook and just on our website. It was just burgeoning early before we were open. Just like, here's what's coming to this space. And I look fondly upon this time now. I met a lot of our fans. I met some of our employees. I met a great group of people and started to build an audience of supporters who were like, wow, that's really cool. I just opened the doors and I would talk to people and pour my homebrews for them. So it wasn't revenue generating, but it was marketing. It was just on the, I called it, at the time we were doing our logo design and all kinds of other work. And I remember meeting with my designer, and a friend of mine had helped me find her. I actually used the local arts institute where my friend works to present the concept of HoneyGirl Meadery to 20 to 30 bright, creative students. She wanted to have them work on real-world projects, so I worked on a HoneyGirl Meadery design for 3 semesters running. I might lose my train of thought here now. Help rein me in. During that time frame. I'm sorry. Anyway, I had this great designer and my friend, and we were working on the logo stuff, and I was talking about it and said, well, we're just, building the buzz right now about HoneyGirl Meadery. And my friend Lisa looked at me and she said, that's exactly what you have to put on your T-shirt. So that became our Building the Buzz campaign. And so it was just about, that's what we're doing, letting you guys know what's coming to this space. I thought about, having art shows there or maybe renting the space. And, I know there's probably a lot of other ways I maybe could have tried to monetize it, but there was a lot of construction work going on at the time. So that was my lemonade out of lemons to just take advantage to start to build my base of fans during those delays.
All right, so you were allowed to make and give away homebrew, but you can't sell it and you can't make anything until you've got your licensing. You can't even start making anything?
Yeah, you can't make anything because it's all sequential. So you need I needed the winery license first from the TTB. And then once I had that winery license, I needed that number so that I could submit a formula so that I could get the formula approved and make something. And but once that formula is approved, you can start making that. So it was that sequential thing. So it was while I was